Michael Jackson was in the middle of Billie Jean's when a desperate mother's scream cut through the music of 65,000 fans. What he did next had never been done before in pop music history. It was July 16, 1988, at Wembley Stadium in London. Michael was performing the final show of his Bad World Tour's European leg, and the energy was absolutely electric. He'd already set the crowd on fire with Smooth Criminal, Beat It, and Rock With You. Now he was deep into his signature song, the one that made him a global superstar. The stadium was packed with 65,000 screaming fans. But what none of them knew was that in the special access section, just 20 feet from the stage, sat a 9-year-old girl who wasn't supposed to live to see her 10th birthday. Emma Rodriguez was fighting a battle no child should ever face. The aggressive brain tumor that had been growing for 8 months was finally winning, and her doctors in Madrid had given her family the devastating news: less than 2 weeks to live. Her parents, Maria and Carlos Rodriguez, had made the impossible decision to take her out of the hospital for one final dream. Emma had been obsessed with Michael Jackson since she was 5 years old. Her hospital room was covered with his posters, and even during her worst chemotherapy sessions, she would ask the nurses to play Billie Jean to help her through the pain. "Mama, before I go to heaven, I want to dance with Michael," Emma had whispered 3 days earlier, her small voice barely audible through the oxygen mask. "I want to show him my moonwalk." Maria had tried to explain that Michael Jackson concerts were impossible to get tickets for, especially with only days of planning. But Carlos Rodriguez, a construction worker who had never asked for help from anyone, had spent every penny of their savings and called in every favor he had. At 3 p.m. that afternoon, a contact at the Spanish embassy in London had managed to secure special access passes. They weren't backstage passes, but they were close enough to the stage that Emma could see her hero clearly. Emma was so weak that Carlos had to carry her from the hotel to their seats. The little girl was wearing her favorite Michael Jackson t-shirt, a sparkly replica of his famous sequined glove on the front, and a colorful headscarf to cover the hair she'd lost during treatment. For the first hour and a half of the concert, Emma was in pure heaven. Despite her exhaustion and pain, she was singing along to every song, her small voice completely lost in the roar of 65,000 people, but her joy visible to anyone who looked at her. Maria kept checking Emma's pulse, terrified that the excitement might be too much for her weakened heart. But Emma was more alive than she'd been in months. "This is the best night of my whole life, Mama," she whispered during a brief costume change break, her eyes shining with pure happiness. Maria fought back tears, knowing this would likely be Emma's last truly joyful moment. When the opening beats of Billie Jean began pounding through the stadium speakers, Emma's entire face lit up with an energy that seemed impossible given her condition. This was her absolute favorite Michael Jackson song, the one she'd been practicing her moonwalk to for years, even when she could barely stand. Michael emerged from beneath the stage in his iconic sequined jacket, and the crowd went absolutely wild. He was in his element, moving with that supernatural grace that had made him the king of pop, spinning and gliding across the stage like he was defying gravity itself. He was about halfway through the song, pointing directly at the crowd during the famous Billie Jean "Is Not My Lover" line, when it happened. From the special access section just 20 feet away, a woman's voice cut through the thunderous music and crowd noise like a knife. It was Maria Rodriguez, and she was screaming with the desperation of a mother who had absolutely nothing left to lose. "Michael, please, my daughter is dying. She loves you so much." Michael stopped mid-spin, his sequined glove frozen in the air. He looked confused for a moment, trying to locate where the voice had come from. The band, unsure what was happening, gradually began to slow down, but kept playing. The massive crowd started to quiet, as people realized something unusual was happening on stage. "Michelle!" Maria screamed again, now standing and holding Emma in her arms so he could see her. "Please, she's only got days left. She just wanted to dance with you." The stadium began to fall silent, section by section, as 65,000 people all turned to look at the woman, holding a clearly very sick child near the front of the stage. Michael put his hand up to his security team, signaling them to stop. He walked to the front edge of the stage, squinting through the bright lights to see what was happening. "Ma'am," Michael said, his voice now carrying clearly through the stadium's sound system, "what did you say?" Maria, tears streaming down her face, lifted Emma higher so Michael could see her clearly. "This is my daughter Emma," she called out, her voice breaking with emotion. "She's 9 years old, and she's dying from a brain tumor. The doctors say she has maybe a week left. All she wanted was to see you perform. She's been practicing her moonwalk for you for years." The stadium was now completely silent, except for the faint hum of the sound system. Michael stood at the edge of the stage, looking down at this tiny girl in a Michael Jackson t-shirt who was clearly fighting for her life. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Michael called out gently. Emma, despite her weakness, managed to speak loudly enough for the microphone to pick up. "Emma Rodriguez, I love you, Michael. I want to dance with you." Those 8 words, "I love you, Michael. I want to dance with you," ma'am, spoken by a dying 9-year-old girl, hit Michael like a physical blow. What Michael did next had never been done before in the history of major stadium concerts. He turned to his band and made a cutting motion across his throat, the universal signal to stop playing completely. Then he addressed the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to be patient with me for a moment. There's something happening here that's more important than any show." Michael began walking toward the side of the stage, gesturing to his security team. Within minutes, something incredible was happening. Michael's security team was carefully escorting the Rodriguez family through the backstage area and up a special ramp that led directly to the stage. Emma was barely conscious, but she was awake enough to realize that something miraculous was happening. "Are we really going to meet Michael Jackson?" she whispered to her mother. "Yes, baby," Maria said, crying. "Yes, we are." When Michael Jackson walked back onto the Wembley Stadium stage, carrying 9-year-old Emma Rodriguez in his arms, 65,000 people fell completely silent. The sight of the king of pop holding a obviously dying little girl was so powerful, so unexpected, that nobody knew how to react. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said into his microphone, his voice thick with emotion, "I want you to meet my friend Emma Rodriguez. Emma is 9 years old, and she's been fighting the bravest battle that anyone could ever fight. But you know what? Emma is stronger than all of us. And tonight, Emma is going to help me finish this show." The stadium erupted, but it wasn't the usual screaming and cheering. It was respectful, emotional applause, the kind you hear when people are witnessing something sacred. Michael gently set Emma down on the stage next to him. Despite her weakness, despite everything she was going through, Emma stood up straight and looked out at 65,000 people who were all focused entirely on her. "Emma has been practicing her moonwalk," Michael announced to the crowd. "Would you like to see it?" The stadium roared with encouragement. What happened next was pure magic. As Michael began to slowly moonwalk backward across the stage, Emma, this tiny, sick little girl, began to moonwalk right alongside him. Her movements were shaky, and she nearly fell twice, but Michael was right there, steadying her with gentle hands. The sight of Michael Jackson and a dying 9-year-old girl moonwalking together across the Wembley Stadium stage was so beautiful, so heartbreaking, that there wasn't a dry eye in the entire stadium. Michael sat down at his piano, with Emma standing beside him, and began playing Billie Jean again, but slower, more gentle, turning it into something like a lullaby. "This one's for you, Emma," he said softly into the microphone. As he sang, something incredible happened. Emma, despite her weakness, began singing along. Her small, fragile voice blended with Michael's powerful vocals in a way that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. But then something even more magical occurred. 65,000 people began singing along too, but quietly, respectfully, turning the song into a gentle chorus for a dying little girl. The entire stadium was singing Billie Jean as a lullaby for Emma Rodriguez. When the song ended, Michael knelt down to Emma's level and whispered something in her ear that only she could hear. Emma smiled, the first real smile her parents had seen in weeks. "Emma," Michael said into the microphone, "you've made this the most special show of my entire career. Thank you for being here with me tonight." As Michael prepared to help Emma back to her parents, the little girl did something that surprised everyone. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, homemade friendship bracelet, the kind children make with colored string. "For you," Emma whispered, tying it around Michael's wrist, "so you remember me when I'm in heaven." Michael broke down crying right there on stage, in front of 65,000 people. Michael finished the concert wearing Emma's friendship bracelet, and every song he sang seemed to be dedicated to the little girl who was now back in her mother's arms in the special VIP area. After the show, Michael spent 2 hours with the Rodriguez family in his dressing room. He signed photographs, gave Emma one of his sequined gloves, and promised to call her every day while she was back in the hospital. But here's the incredible part of this story, the part that nobody could have predicted. Emma Rodriguez didn't die in 2 weeks, or 2 months, or even 2 years. Something about that night, whether it was the excitement, the love she felt from 65,000 strangers, or just the power of having her biggest dream come true, seemed to give Emma a surge of strength that her doctors couldn't explain. Emma lived for another 4 years after that Wembley concert, 4 years that the doctors said were medically impossible, 4 years filled with quality time with her family, more Michael Jackson concerts. Michael made sure Emma had front-row seats whenever he performed in Europe, and most importantly, 4 years without fear. After that night, Maria Rodriguez said years later, Emma wasn't afraid of dying anymore. She knew she was loved, not just by us, but by Michael and by all those people who sang with her that night. It gave her such peace. During those 4 years, Emma became like a little sister to Michael. He would call her every few weeks, and whenever he was in Europe, he would visit her in Spain. She even appeared in one of his music videos as a special guest. When Emma finally passed away in 1992, she was wearing the sequined glove that Michael had given her that magical July night at Wembley. The experience with Emma Rodriguez changed Michael Jackson profoundly. From that night forward, Michael made it a point to connect with sick children at his concerts. Not always as dramatically as he did with Emma, but he started scanning the audience differently, looking for those special moments. Michael was never the same after meeting Emma, said Karen Fay, Michael's longtime makeup artist. He started seeing his concerts not just as entertainment, but as opportunities to touch people's lives. That little girl reminded Michael why he was really there. Michael kept Emma's friendship bracelet for the rest of his life. It was found in his bedroom at Neverland Ranch after he died, along with dozens of letters from Emma and photos from that incredible night at Wembley. The concert where Michael Jackson brought Emma Rodriguez on stage became legendary among his fans. Bootleg recordings of that night are some of the most treasured Michael Jackson recordings in existence, not because of the music, but because of the humanity they captured. In 1995, the Emma Rodriguez Foundation was established by her parents to grant final wishes to terminally ill children. The foundation's motto, taken from what Michael said that night, is "There's something more important than any show." To date, the foundation has granted over 15,000 wishes to sick children around the world, many of them involving meetings with their favorite performers. The story of Michael Jackson and Emma Rodriguez reminds us that sometimes the most important moments in life happen when we stop what we're doing and pay attention to what really matters. Michael could have ignored Maria's desperate plea. He could have finished his song, completed his show, and gone home. After all, he had 65,000 other fans to consider, and stopping a major stadium concert had never been done before. Instead, he chose compassion over convention. He chose a moment of human connection over professional obligation. He chose to be Michael the man instead of Michael the performer. And in doing so, he gave a dying little girl 4 more years of life, 65,000 people a memory they'd carry forever, and all of us a reminder that fame and success mean nothing if we don't use them to help others. Today, there's a small plaque at Wembley Stadium that reads, "In memory of Emma Rodriguez and all the children who remind us what really matters." July 16, 1988. Every major artist who plays Wembley sees that plaque, and many of them ask about the story behind it. When they hear about Michael and Emma, something changes in how they approach their own performances, because the story of that July night reminds us all that we never know who's in our audience. We never know who needs a moment of magic, a touch of hope, or just the knowledge that someone cares. Michael Jackson stopped his show for Emma Rodriguez, but really Emma Rodriguez saved Michael's show by reminding him, and all of us, what performing is really about. It's not about the lights, the screaming, or the applause. It's about the connection between human beings. It's about using whatever gifts we have to make someone else's life a little brighter. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it's about giving a dying little girl the strength to live 4 more years by showing her that she is loved by 65,000 strangers and the king of pop himself. If this incredible story of compassion and human connection moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of putting people before performance. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone stopped everything to help another person? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing true stories about the heart behind music's greatest legends.